They were late teenagers, disrespectful as normal teenagers are, and they called and they were going to come and visit us for a couple of weeks, and well, this was not my idea of a good time. And so I said, honey, how would you like to have bonding time with your children? He said, that sounds like a great idea. He probably didn't have to worry about me and them either. And so I said, why don't I go somewhere? He said, great. Where do you want to go? He's thinking San Francisco. I said, Africa. He said, okay. So I went online and I booked an organized tour. And I met those 15 people in Nairobi. I was the only North American on the trip. But you know, I go with God, so I belong everywhere I go, fearlessly. I'm just so grateful for that. We're so much more alike all over the world, and we're different. And along the way, there was this little school that we saw. And very poor, bare walls, and the children, there's 600 of them going to that school. And their sandals are made of pieces of tires, car tires, strapped on their feet. And some of them would walk 2 or 3 hours one way to get that bowl of beans for lunch. All bare walls. And I'm thinking, dear God, how can I be useful? Use me. What can I do? How can I help them? And Mr. Mina, the school principal, was asking us to donate to the lunch program, and there was only one person who donated, and I'm thinking nobody's helping these people. And so the school was about 20-25-minute drive from the camp where we were. And so I went back to the camp and I asked a guide, I'd love to be able to send like $50 a month to the lunch program. How can I get in touch with them? He said, don't worry, we'll take the money ourselves, even if we hand deliver it. I'm thinking, right, on the bicycle. And so I got to my tent and I prayed and I said, dear God, if you want me to help them, give me a clear sign, because I don't want to have to worry about this, you know, whether they get the money or not. And after my prayers, I went to walk in that little village. And about an hour later or so, I'm coming back, and I'm about 5 minutes from leaving the road to go back to camp. And who's coming straight at me, shooting by on his bicycle, but the school principals from that morning. So I had goose flesh all over, and I stopped him, told him I wanted to help. We exchanged email addresses, and as soon as I got home, I emailed him. And he said, thank God Almighty that you've kept your promise to the children, to the Maasai children. And we started this wonderful relationship. And then the first thing was to attend the orphans. Over there, if you don't have $300 to pay for the dormitory-style school for the 8th grade, your education stops. And for them, that's a lot of money. So he knew of 5 orphans who've left his school. So one by one, I said, okay, I'll take care of them, and I'll take care of that one, and I'll support them, you know, as long as they want to be educated. You know, God wants to do that through me. I'm just a channel. And so my husband said, well, honey, if you're going to do that, we should create a foundation, non-profit. So Mina's Kids was born. And then we did some other project, and along the way, a university dropped 6 computers there that were put in the back room. So I thought, oh my goodness, we need a computer room. And so, long story short, my idea was to send $50 a month, but now I'm raising money to build a library computer lab. We have computers coming in, the books coming over from England, and the building is under construction. God is big. And once you say yes, you just don't know. And this is my second purpose in life, and I plan on doing that as long as I'm alive, you know, to take care of those Maasai children on God's behalf. And it brings me so much joy. Someone talked about being in Egypt. I just came back a couple of months ago from Cairo, and I had the privilege of meditating in the mosque. And I felt you were right there with me. And in that country, especially in Cairo, it's very conservative, and all the ladies, they are covered. They are covered. And I felt just like them. I belong there. I am a citizen of the world because Alcoholics Anonymous is in my belly. We are all at one, and I love them, and they love me. And after 2 or 3 days, I told my husband, I am so comfortable here. And I figured one of the reasons, the insecurities that I have about my looks were not triggered because I couldn't see who looked perkier, who had the thinner waist or the taller legs. I couldn't see. And then I realized how just 2 months ago, how much I still compare. And the older I get, the more on the shorter end of the stick I end up, you know? And after 29 years of sobriety, taking all those steps, thousands of steps, all those years, maybe when I die, I'll still be insecure about my looks. I don't know. Which is a part of being self-centered too. But I have to grow where I am planted. And I can tell you in this moment that I feel the best that I've ever felt right here with you, sharing my heart, sharing my roller coaster. And this year I've had some new opportunities to take the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous because I've had 2 types of affairs that I needed to deal with. My little Misty, March 26 in the morning, our little family woke up normally, and my husband took the 2 little dogs to have their teeth cleaned, and Misty needed to have some extraction. And in the evening, she started to breathe in a weird way, and at 3 a.m. in bed with me, she died. And I've never watched somebody die before. I've never grieved before. And I just watched her expel her last 2 little breaths. And I went like, oh my gosh, John. And he came over, and this was the most painful experience of my life. My knees buckled, and my husband called Damien on the program, and that's his business, this type of thing. And he said, oh, Lynn, I know, Lynn. There is nothing they can do for those little dogs. She had congestive heart failure, he said. And he said he would come and pick her up at 6:30. So I went outside, and in my bathrobe, barefooted. And I'd sit on the curb and cry, and walk and sit on the curb and cry. And then I called my daddy, and no matter how rocky, Daddy's girl always calls Daddy for support, and he's always there. And so he said, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. And he said, I know, my baby girl, don't you go blame yourself for this. If it hadn't been today, it would have been in 2 or 3 months, and it would have been worse. She would have died at the hospital on a cold slab, her being terrified, and you waiting for her at home. This was meant to be. Then I placed a call with a grief counselor who made herself available for a session that night. Then I went back home, and we burned incense, and we burned candles, and we communicated with her. And she said, Daddy was such a good boy. She was a biter. And she said, I'm so sorry, but I couldn't help it. And she said I was the best mom she could have had. And he picked her up at 6:30. And by 7 o'clock, I had slept maybe for an hour since the day before. And my husband said, honey, you take a shower, I take a shower, and we're going to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I came to you, and I cried, and I sobbed, and you put your arms around me, and nobody said, but it's just a dog. Maybe some of you thought it, but nobody told me that. And then my husband took me back home, and I sobbed, and I cried the whole day, the whole night. And the next morning, he went outside to walk Cream Puff. And when he came back, I said, honey, please take me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we did that, and I cried some more, and you put your arms around me. And I did not make my bed for 3 weeks. I was so distraught. Because I've been sick, If I have a boo-boo, I pray and I hold my doggy. I don't go to my husband. I haven't made that. I'm making the switch now. But, yeah. And really, it's because my little love button has been sick. I think only a dog can love me unconditionally. That's really what's underneath all that. I'm still not sure that I'm worthy of love, you know. So like I heard this morning, I put the left foot, the right foot, and I breathe, you know. And so 2 weeks after that, I was at a convention up in Washington, and there were about 2,000 people there, and that place had the buzz of a Super Bowl. It was so exciting, but you know, it numbed me. I couldn't feel anything. I had no joy. And Carla, my wonderful friend, just put her arms around me, and to have Doug there as well, and you were such a big support to me. And I was the speaker on Sunday morning, and you would think this is as much smack in the middle of this thing as you can be. I just attended 5, 6, 7 AA meetings. I was the center of attention that morning. I was being of service. They took me back to the airport, and the pain came back like anesthesia wearing off after surgery, and I became distraught. And I got into that little commuter plane, and I'm kind of claustrophobic anyway, and I was not doing well. I was not breathing well. I was panicky. And the liquor cart came down, and it stopped about 3 feet from me. And the thought came, this would make the pain go away, even if just for a little while. This was the first time I have wanted to drink since I got sober. And I started to salivate. You know the tingling here? And then, oh my goodness, they taught me, the big book says that if that craving comes back, I will have to drink because I have no power over this. And I saw myself reaching out for the bottle, and I knew they would have to give it to me. There was no fellowship, no big book. I couldn't call my sponsor. And I said, dear God, please, dear God, take that away from me. And it passed. I always believed that my alcoholism is like a beast behind me, about a yard waiting for me to slow down. It ain't so. It's right here between my ears. And all it takes is a few components to converge and create a vortex, and there is that mental twist. The big book says, in the life of all alcoholics, there will be a moment when there is no defense against that thirst drink, but a higher power. I better have God. The fellowship is wonderful. That's where we can carry the message and practice our 12 step. But it's only 1/half of the 12 step. Most of those steps are done alone, at home, in the closet. Most of those steps, it's me and God.